I'm Rashonda. I'm the creator of this YouTube channel as well as the artbyro.com website where you can find over 200 art and drawing tutorials. So if that sounds like something you might enjoy, check that out at some point. Again, that's artbyro.com. Lots and lots of art and drawing tutorials on there, similar to what you'll find on this channel. So if you enjoy art and drawing and you're trying to learn new skills and techniques and just maybe some inspiration or ideas, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. At this point, I'm doing about one video every week. So if you want a new video every week and you want to get notified, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to give us a like if you enjoy the video. Today we're going to be drawing a little nostalgic happy camper drawing set in a nice scenery. And this drawing is going to be done on artist trading cards, which if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I enjoy doing my art on artist trading cards. You don't have to. You can do yours on any type of paper that you want, a sketchbook or whatever. It's just what I enjoy doing. So if that sounds interesting to you and you're not familiar with artist trading cards, check out the description box. I have a free download in there that'll explain what they are and how to make your own. And I think that's it for the introduction. So let's go ahead and go on over to the art studio and get started drawing some little happy campers. Today we're going to be doing a camper drawing, and I'm doing mine on an artist trading card. If you've been watching my videos for a little bit, you already know that I like doing my drawings on artist trading cards. It saves me time. I can put them in a portfolio. There's all kinds of reasons why I enjoy doing my drawings this way. I'll be using my regular art supplies. I have my pencil that I prefer. I have a nice click eraser that's really good for cleaning up the drawing as I go. And if you're interested in what supplies I typically use, those are listed in the description box, so go ahead and check that out. For this drawing, we're going to start with basic shapes. If you've been around for a bit, you also know that I like starting on my drawing with some simple shapes. So for this camper, I want it to fill up most of the area of my paper, but I'm going to start with a square, or I guess it'd be a rectangle rather. And I'm just roughing this in. This is just going to give me an idea of the layout. I'll add a circle for the tire. And then I'm also going to add a small rectangle for the hitch part of the camper. So even though this camper, when it's finished, is not going to be square, I'm still going to start with a rectangle shape for my basic shape because that's going to give me some guidelines for how I want to draw my camper. So I want this camper to be rounded. So I'm going to start doing that now. This is going to come straight across here. I'm going to bring this up a little bit, up on the outside of that rectangle shape. And I want the front to be rounded. So it's going to round and then it's going to come back to this straight line at the bottom. And then you can kind of play around with the shape a little bit. Do whatever looks right for you. I always say that my drawings, I'm just showing you one way of doing it. And of course, there's a lot of different ways you can draw things. So now I want to do the door. So I'm going to start by drawing the line on the bottom. It's going to round off at the top. So there's my door. I can put a window in here if I want. And you could also, if you want to, you can clean up some of these lines as you go. If they're in your way or if it's making it hard to see what you're doing, you can erase them. If they don't bother you, leave them. We will be cleaning it up later. Sometimes when you're working small though, you get all those extra lines in there. It clutters it up a little bit too much. So we're just going to keep going. I can get rid of this line, and I want to make a hubcap for this, because this is an old school classic type of a camper. The hitch we're not going to do too much with. Maybe we could put a wheel at the bottom of it. They usually have a little crank up here. I'm not worried about getting too detailed with that. Make this a little thinner. So now it's just a matter of adding whatever details you want to add to your camper. And you can do as few or as many as you want. So we could put some lights. I like adding a line across here. A lot of the old campers had like these two-tone panels on them. And of course we need a window. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle for the window back here. And then I can add some curtains in here. Or you could do something different with your window if you don't want to add curtains. Again, it's really up to you what you want to add to your camper, what you think looks good. Don't add something just because I'm showing you what I'm doing in my video. I want you guys to do your own thing, experiment, try different ideas out, which is one of the big reasons why I like doing my drawings on artist trading cards. Because they're so much quicker to do, you don't have that huge time investment, and you have more freedom to try some different things. It makes it really nice. So the camper itself, that's pretty much finished. I don't think I want to add anything more to it. You could add some steps in here if you wanted to. Campers have those fold-out steps that come down. We could put that in there. But that's pretty much it. And then what I like to do is add somewhere in here, I want to add a horizon line. And you can make this uneven if you want, or you can make it straight across. You could put whatever you want for your background. Maybe I want a sun in here. Maybe I want some mountains going across the back. Again, it's just up to you what you want your mountains to have, or if you don't want mountains, how you want them. You can make the mountains all different kinds of ways. I could put some kind of shrubbery in here, some trees or bushes. Nothing too fancy, nothing super detailed. We don't need to get crazy with any of this. We could put some little pieces of grass, maybe some rocks in here. So whatever you want to add for your background, you can draw that in too if you want. That's pretty much it for the drawing itself. Now we need to work on the outline and adding some color. Most of the time when I do my outlines, I like using these Sharpie pens. This is a medium. This isn't the same as the white and black markers. I think they're extra fine markers. This is different. This is a pen. It's very different than the Sharpie marker, the real thin Sharpie markers, which I don't have any more of those to show you what that looks like, but they're the white ones with the black cap. They're about the same diameter, the physical pen itself, but for one thing, they smell and they bleed into the paper too much. These don't bleed into the paper, which is really nice. So all I'm going to do is literally just trace over all of my pencil lines that I want to keep. So remember, if you sketch things out and you left some of that there, just keep track of what lines you're keeping and what ones you're not keeping. So if it's helpful to clean up your drawing and erase before you do your outline, then you can go ahead and do that. If not, then you can save that little bit of time skipping that step and just keep track of where you're at and what needs outlined and what doesn't. So also when you're doing your outlines, you can keep them all uniform, or you can vary your line weights, which will actually make your drawing a little bit more interesting, but it does take some time and a little bit of practice to just sort of get that technique down. But that's something that's a skill worth practicing. Using a brush pen looks really nice on drawings, but it does take a bit of time to get good at using those. That's something I haven't done recently. I used to use brush pens years ago and loved them once I got a little bit better at using them. But just something I haven't taken the time to pick back up again, which I should. I've been saying that for quite some time now, but yeah, brush pens are a good way to vary your line weights. Makes your drawings look, in my opinion, it makes them look more interesting. So I'm just going to outline everything. I can add some extra details in here if I want, maybe some shading. Give this shrubbery a little bit of texture. And then you can just add a few little blades of grass if you want to. And all this is optional. You could make your camper sitting in a forest. You can make it sitting on the beach. Or you could leave the scenery out altogether and not include any type of scenery in it. Again, like I said, I'm just showing you one way to do this. And then my hopes is that you will take what I'm showing you and change it up and make it your own. Do something more along the styles of what you would do. Not just simply copying mine exactly, which you can. I think it's good to maybe copy it the first time and then do some additional drawings, experimenting, trying different things. So now I'm just going to take this big eraser, and you can use any type of eraser, any block eraser works. A pink eraser works good. And sometimes after you erase, you might need to go in there and clean up your lines a little bit. Sometimes the pencil makes it look like you have a solid outline and you don't. All right, so that's it for that. And then I just want to even these out a little bit. Okay, so that's it for the drawing itself. I'm going to erase that sun because the yellow and the oranges don't cover up the pencil lines. Now we need to get some markers, or if you want to use colored pencils or something different, paint, whatever you want to do to color your drawing in. We need to grab those supplies and we can start adding some color to this. Okay, I got some markers. What I do when I choose my colors is I take these little scrap pieces, and these are left over from the cardstock sheets when I cut out my artist trading cards, and I keep these to check out my colors to see what they look like when they're actually on paper. So I have some different markers. These are all alcohol-based markers. I like the alcohol base because you can blend them together and they'll make a smoother gradation instead of having a hard edge. So you can put two different colors or two different markers. So for example, I have two different pink markers and one of them's darker than the other. So what I can do is layer them, and I can fill in the lightest color, and then I can take the darker color and add some shadows or just some darker areas so I don't have big blocks of just plain color, which looks a little bit like just like a coloring book or something. It looks a little bit nicer if you add multiple shades of the same color. So I like to always use 2 or 3 markers. So if I'm doing pink, I like to do 2 or 3 different pink markers. You want the difference to be pretty subtle if you want your edges to blend in nice, which is what I'm going for. And it also depends on your own personal artistic style. That's just how I like doing my colors. If you don't like that, then feel free to do yours however you want. So what I'm going to do for this is leave this top part's going to be white. So we're going to end up filling that in with some gray shadows. I'm going to use a yellow and orange for the light that's right here. And then I also have a couple different gray markers that I'm going to use just to add a little variation to what I'm doing. Add a little bit of a darker area in there. So I'm just going to go back and forth with these colors. The door, you could leave white, or you can add a color to the door. You could make it more of a solid, like a filled in gray. So I'm just going to use this darker gray. You could use black. I'm not at all opposed to using black. I know a lot of people say don't use black in your artwork. Again, that's a personal preference. Do whatever feels right, whatever you think looks right. So basically what I'll do is I'll keep working back and forth on the different things as I decide what I want to do. So if I'm not sure what I want to do with that door, then I might just leave the door until last, and then I can go in and do something with it in a little bit. You can also put a handle for the door there, which isn't, I don't think it's 100% necessary to put all those little functional details on your camper. I don't think anybody's going to notice your camper doesn't have a handle on the door. I don't think it really matters. It's up to you though. Whatever feels appropriate. Sometimes adding those little extra details and making it more realistic, so to speak, when you're not drawing a realistic drawing, can sometimes take away from the overall artwork. Things like adding the little handle and all that, sometimes it's better to just leave it be and not add all those extras. Like I said, sometimes that takes away from the artwork a little bit, so it's up to you how much of those little details you want to add. So I'm just putting some light gray in here. Break that up a little bit. Now you could also go in and add some shading in here. Make some lines on the camper with black. Do some little hatching or cross hatching. Whatever you feel is necessary for your drawing is how you should be doing it. So I need to get some greens. Again, I want to do, if I'm doing green, I want to use at least 2 or 3, at least 2 or possibly 3. On a drawing this small, it's hard to do more than 3 for sure, but sometimes even 3 can get to be a little bit much. So, but definitely I would say try to use at least 2 different colors, 2 different markers if you're doing markers, or even if you're doing colored pencils or paint. You still want to break up those areas with some different variations of your colors. And even with the grass, it adds a lot to it without really much extra effort. So I think the payoff versus the effort is much greater, and it's worth the extra time to do that, take the time to do it. So I'm just cleaning up those rough edges a little bit, the start and stop points. So now I need to do the mountains. I still need to do the curtains, the windows. And the windows can be pretty much any color that you choose to make them. I like making them blue, even though they technically really wouldn't be blue unless they're reflecting off the sun. I just like the way they look. So I'm just looking for the right blue markers that are going to blend good together. And I should probably mention, because I get asked this quite a bit, if you can mix different brands of colors, and yes, you can. I have a lot of different markers that I've collected over the years. And as long as they're alcohol-based markers, you can mix and match them together. So I have this gray is a Prismacolor. I have these touch markers that I really like. I have some Bic markers that I like them as far as their functionality. They work fine. They only have a single tip on them instead of dual tip like a lot of the markers are. But it's okay. It works fairly well for both larger areas and smaller areas. What I don't like about the Bic markers is that if you run out of a color, you have to buy an entire set just to get that one color. So they're not very practical in that sense. We're just going to keep working on filling all this in. I think I'll just use the yellow and the orange. Tie these in together. It's a good idea to use colors, repeat colors throughout your drawings. It helps unify the piece and create harmony and let your eye travel through the drawing more naturally. All right, so that's it for the camper itself. I got the door with some gray, the camper itself, the top part got some gray shading in it. So now the next thing is to finish up the background, the scenery. So I need to grab some different markers and then I will be back to finish that up. I got some markers for the background elements. So that's all I have to do now is just finish that up. So I have some different brown markers that I can do the ground and these little rocks over here. And again, I like to do some different values, some lights and darks. And I have my little tester piece of paper because sometimes the markers look very different on their labels than what they do when you actually color them on paper. So what I'll do is just, I have this little test paper and I can put that on there. So now I just want to fill all this in. These markers aren't the greatest. These are the Prismacolor. And I've had these markers for at least 10, 15 years. Well, definitely over 10 years, closer to 15 years for sure. And they sat for quite a while. I took a break from creating art for about, I think about 6 years. And when I was working a bunch of hours at my day job and I just didn't have the time or the energy or the motivation. So they literally just sat for about 6 years until I decided that I needed to make time because I had missed it so much and it was something I needed to figure out how to fit into my life and my current situation. So I was surprised that after sitting for that long, and after that, not even that they sat, but just for that amount of time, that they were still good as new. And even now, like I said, I bought these Prismacolors were, I think, the first markers I bought when I wanted to learn how to do graffiti art and I wanted to learn how to use markers. So I bought a big set of Prismacolor. And that was the first ones that I bought, and that was at least 15 years ago. And they're still going strong, no issues with them. I think they did redesign the tips of them. I'll show you the end. So this is the big end, which is pretty big when you're trying to get into smaller spaces. And then this other side has this really, really pointed tip, which I found to be pretty useless. For one thing, it's too small, but also it seems like the ink never really came out of it very well. Even when they were new, it didn't really, the ink didn't flow enough out of that. So I never really used that smaller tip. Plus it's so small. For filling something in with markers, it really didn't work. It just wasn't very practical, and I never really used it, and it always seemed like it was dried up anyway, and like I said, the ink didn't really flow out of it. So I'm just adding some shadows with this darker color. Just breaking up this. I don't like big chunks of solid color. So I tend to just use my other markers and just kind of break it up a little bit. And another thing that I get asked about pretty regularly is people will ask me if going over top of your darker colors with the lighter colors, won't it transfer onto the marker? And the answer is no. It will not. You can go over top of the lighter colors and the darker colors, and nothing's gonna happen. They also make colorless blenders that are just I'm assuming they're just the alcohol. And you can use those to blend your colors. And most sets of markers will come with those. Quite a few of them do. I haven't bought big sets in a while, but the ones that I do have tend to have those, the colorless blenders. So you could use that, or you can just use your lighter color marker. And then the other thing, if I don't have a good gray that's in between these two, but what you can do a lot of times is if you use the bigger end of the marker, it will saturate the paper a little bit more, and it'll kind of erase that darker gray a little bit. So that's the thing with the markers, is to get nice smooth transitions, you need to have a lot of different markers. And I have quite a few gray markers, but I don't have anything in between there. The next one up from this is the same, pretty close to the same shade as that one is. So that's kind of the thing with markers, is you have to have a lot of them, or you have to be okay with things not being exactly perfect in the way you want them to be. So again, I'm just breaking up these colors, these big blocks, these big areas, just a personal preference. I don't like the big blocked out areas of color. So I'll usually just break it up by adding some different values in there, some darker values. So this is pretty much almost done. All I have to do is the sky. And again, same thing with the blues. I don't have a good mix of blue where I can blend them in nicely. And I really, to be honest, I haven't looked a ton either. So I guess if I really tried, I just make do with what I have. One of the things is that I try not to stress out too much. Like this doesn't gradate the way I want to, but it's good enough. It'll work. And then the thing with markers is you can layer them. And when you layer up the different colors, you're gonna get a different look if you put the orange on top of the yellow, or if you just put the orange down. And the orange is another one that I don't always have a good transition with, because I don't have a good orange that's between that yellow and the lighter orange. But again, we'll just make do with what we have. And then this blue, I'm just going to fill in the rest of the sky. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm showing you one way to do this. There's lots of different ways to color with markers. There's different techniques, different artists do different things. So the best way for you to learn what you like is just to experiment and try new things. Look at different artists and different videos and different works of art, and just see what you like, what you don't like, and then just kind of take the different pieces and put them together for your own artwork. So I am going to use, it's not a colorless blender, but some of these markers, they're so light that all they do is make the paper kind of wet. You can't you can't even see any color coming out. And I'll save those and use those as a colorless blender. And they're so light, sometimes you can't even tell if they're dried up or if they're still working. But you can see it kind of, I don't know that you can see it on here very well, but it picks up that pigment. But it will help soften that edge up. And then you can take your color and go back over top of it a little bit. Like I said, I don't have the right blue, so I can add more of the same color, layer it over top, and it'll darken it up a little bit. So that is it for the color. And then the last thing that I do with my drawings is to use a white Jelly Roll pen to add some white highlights. And again, mostly it's to break up those big areas of color. I'm not looking too much at where my shadows are or my light source. I don't worry too much about that most of the time. These aren't realistic drawings, so I'm not trying to do like an illustration or anything like that. So mostly I use the white to just break up these areas. I like how it looks with a little bit of white added to it. Again, personal preference. If you like the white, add it. If not, leave it off. And that's pretty much it. I think we're gonna call that done. That's it for the little nostalgic cozy camper. I hope you liked this video, and hopefully you'll try doing some of your own drawings. And I will see you next time. Happy creating! Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a like. It helps us reach more people and it helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to get notified for future videos. Also, check out that description box. There's some freebies in there and additional information. That's it for today. I will see you next time. Bye!